All right, we're on number 5. We're just gonna rip straight in. This is the first one of the new year, so hopefully everyone's well. Hopefully everyone is on their way to um, their fitness goals and in their pre-seasons, and they're doing what they intended to do. If you're having a little bit of trouble with that, reach out to me. I do some online stuff, I do some face to face stuff, and I just do some one off program things. So if you need a little bit of help, or just you have any questions in general, DM me or message me, and we'll get cooking. All right, so what's happening? So the latest footy's back. I'm running. It's new year, and I've got a new page, I guess. So in terms of footy, everything's going really well. We've got an amazing under 20s program flowing through, amazing coaches, and it's just making life, or that side of life, or the job, I should say, so much easier, and it's so much fun doing all those kind of bits and pieces in regards to S&C. Good group, good team, and right attitude. So we're going really well, and this is my sixth year doing this, and it's probably just now that I've got a really good understanding of how I want to introduce things in terms of the program, or the content of running, and what our focus is on, and I guess a small plan in blocks, and how I kind of want everything to flow, and knowing when to do more or do less or pull back, or very easy to adapt to any change or think on the fly. And so everything's going really well. I'm just very, very confident in this stuff now. 5-6 years ago, just starting out, it was tricky, just because I didn't have enough skin in the game. It made, I guess, my library of knowledge was low, and not that I lacked any confidence doing this stuff, but I was just, my experience is so small, so it was kind of tricky to implement things I didn't know much about. So yeah, that's going quite well. Running, so I'm planning to do a bit of a run in August. So gearing up for that. It's going to be 100 kilometers. It's going to be a 1-day Ned Brockman. So we'll see how we go. The plan is to do a little bit more each week, and it was last week. Yeah, it was last week that I cracked my first 10K. And I'm not a runner whatsoever. I might have the bloody physique of a runner, just tall and bloody string bean-esque, but running's not my jam, but it could be. So slowly kind of doing it's interesting doing the prep and the strength and the conditioning and the program on that kind of stuff. So I've found that quite fascinating and interesting. So I'll let you know how it goes. I'm on Strava. If anyone wants to follow me on Strava and give me some kudos, or a little comment, little morale boost, I'm all for it. New page. So we've got Stay Ready Sam Miner Coaching, and I'll give you the small version of what kind of Stay Ready means. It just basically means being able to perform anytime, any place. Not at like a high, amazing high level or anything like that, but putting factors in your program that will allow you to always have I guess, no weak links. And this is a very West Side thing as well, that they were always able to max out, always ready for competition. There was never the building phase and the hypertrophy phase or the power phase. whatever. It was all just kind of blended into one. And that's how I've kind of taken on my training the last couple of months. And I really like that kind of anti-fragile training. So a lot of exposure. I did a Instagram post that was kind of in my head for a little bit. I was kind of figuring out how to explain it. This idea of experience or exposure leads to expression. But I don't want to go too down that rabbit hole just yet. But the whole thing of stay ready is just stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And that's I heard that quote from a little Conor McGregor, little Irish man. But I just love that concept, is just always ready to perform. So always having strength, mobility, power, dynamic bits and pieces in your program, that you're always operating at a competitive level. But that's happening. But yeah, in terms of the new page and what the content's going to be about, the idea at the start was, and it's still the idea, is to just throw little, I guess, pieces of content that I just wouldn't put on my main page, because it's, I don't know, I just yeah, wouldn't put it on my main page because I don't think it's that for me, that kind of groundbreaking, whether it's like a little exercise. But I'm happy to throw tiny little exercises, tiny little cues, or I guess a little bit more information on that stay ready page, and maybe some exercises that people haven't seen before, or a few cues or things like that, just to kind of, update a little bit more. I need to post on that one a little bit more. But that's the plan, is just like little exercise, a few cues, or just a little bit of understanding. But if I feel the content is okay or decent, I'll probably put it on my main page, and that'll most likely be me speaking over a reel. That's what I've been doing recently. But once these things are back, these vlogs are back, doing a bit more regular, I'm just going to chop it up and drip feed it, I guess, on the gram. But that's all that's happening at the moment. But today we're going to talk about accessing range in the body, acceleration, and I guess a bit of a program continuum in terms of, if you want to achieve this kind of task, or stronger, or whatever, in terms of movement, or increase your ability or athletic ability, you'll have to forgive me. It was my it was Australia Day yesterday, so a few beveraginos. But yeah, just a bit of a continuum in terms of athletic development. So we'll go over accessing different ranges. So you can kind of look at this two ways. So what I kind of mean by accessing different ranges, so in terms of like overhead mobility or hip mobility, being able to squat deep. So you can kind of look at it in two lenses. You can look at it from a exposure lens, which will be something similar to, like, if you want to have a deeper squat, just get in a deeper squat. We're going to do wall sits and all that kind of stuff, or like knee raises or stuff like that. So you can actually look at it from an exposure position, and what that might look like is, if you want to get better at overhead mobility, overhead work, or be stronger there, go into a handstand, go into a hang, go into an overhead carry, go into overhead throws, stuff like that. Just exposure, just so if it's strong enough, and you have the capability to do so, just get your arm whatever it takes in that area. So just the lens of consistent exposure. Then the other way you might look at it is from, I guess, a biomechanical lens. So if you think about when our shoulder, and these are going to be some fancy little words here, so bear with me. If we're going to put our arm or shoulder into flexion through here, what else is kind of happening around? What else is happening to the skeleton, or what else are happening to the bones? So if we're looking to increase overhead mobility or strength, whatever, what happens when our humerus comes up or elevates? Then our shoulder blade or scapula depresses as well. So you might do a heap of like external rotation work, which is pulling this guy back, and you're gonna work on depressing that scapula a lot. And if we can depress that scapula quite well, it's gonna lead, hopefully, it might lead to a bit more overhead mobility or a little bit more strength as well. So the same goes with a wall sit, or like if you're trying to increase hip flexion with our knees coming up. There's my knee. It might be a gradual wall sit and slowly going down into a TRX and then slowly squatting, or you kind of figuring out, okay, what else is happening there as we kind of go down. There's movement at the pelvis, there's movement at the fibula, and all that kind of stuff. So it could be an ankle thing as well. Sometimes it's not, or it's just a heel elevation thing. So looking at from a, I guess, a skeletal point of view, or a exposure point of view. So I hope that kind of makes sense. I kind of waffled on a little bit. So if that doesn't make sense and you've got any questions about that, just let me know. Hopefully that can make sense. I feel as though I just waffled there, so bear with me on this one. Our next this Australia Day is killing me, but it must be done. The next topic is acceleration, and so if we're looking at acceleration from a, I guess, performance point of view, it's okay. We need to work on posterior chain. So heaps of hamstring, heaps of glute, heaps of lower back, heaps of calf, ankle, all that kind of stuff. So all that strong strength work is absolutely a no-brainer when it comes to acceleration. But then there's also a factor in terms of coordination. And if you're looking to improve acceleration, is it just straight line coordination? So, straight line acceleration. But say, and I'll use a footy example, is you're standing around, and then quick break or intercept, or someone busts through the line and you're not ready, you're not anticipating that change in the game. You need to be ready to accelerate, and your body might not be in the correct position, might not be in a straight line, you might be running one direction and then just got to cut hard. So it's being able to one react, so it could be a cognitive thing, one react, two coordinate your body to actually move. So someone like a fullback or an outside back might react a little bit quicker and get to move, whereas a prop who's a little bit stiffer might take them a while to rotate and turn, maybe. And then the other factor is, can your body handle the sudden change of direction? Can your ankles and knees, say if you are running or sidestepping or shuffling one way and then there is a quick break, can you suddenly take off in that position? You're not going to be able to go into a rolling sprint. Not everything is going to happen linearly, if that's a word, linearly. So being able to react, and some people might react well, but then they crumble or they sink into their hips too much for whatever reason. But yeah, they have the coordination, they have the reaction, and then they have, I guess, like the power or the springiness in their body to kind of react and move around. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. There's a few factors. So drills that I've been doing recently is a little bit of reaction in terms of when we do sprints and acceleration work. So I'll usually do acceleration work anywhere from like 15 to 20 meters. And then general rule that I learned was top speed will kind of be achieved, and it will depend on the person, but generally 15, 20 meters. That's when you start to hit a bit of top speed. So we're constantly doing a lot of 15, 20 meter work, repeat efforts, but in different positions, whether it's a side on position or so like if we're running straight, we're starting with our left shoulder facing, and then we kind of react and turn. Again, that's a reaction thing. That's a load thing as well. So ankles and stuff from that position are getting loaded, and it becomes a bit of, and this kind of goes back to the whole experience thing. If players are able to experience, and it's never gonna be perfect. It's very like snowflake-esque. It looks similar, but it's never gonna be identical. But if we can repeat that effort, and these players have been exposed to this movement that's not just straight line, then, and it's very difficult. It won't. It's a tricky one. They'll be more likely to perform that better. So I was going to talk about injury prevention, but you'll never completely figure that out, and what is injury prevention. But in terms of a kind of a mental been there, done that, like the brain is aware of how to coordinate the body if we're doing all these different things, and doing it repetitively enough that your brain and body can figure out the task of starting one way, or starting 45 degrees one way, 90 degrees one way, and then accelerating super quickly. And you might do that as well in terms of making it a little bit more dynamic. So like everyone's facing 90 degrees away. People are facing 90 degrees away, and they start jogging, and then they go off that, say, right foot. And doing that enough it becomes a skill. So being able to load ankles, load knees, or load the body in that way, and if that happens on the field, it's never going to be perfect or exact, but if it's kind of close enough, the body's kind of been there, done that. It understands the task it has to do. And sometimes if the body is required to do a task that it's not quite comfortable with, it'll just kind of be inefficient. You'll either be a bit slower, or it could lead to loading muscles and joints that you haven't done before. So anything could happen there. So I really kind of like changing up my accelerations, and accelerations aren't too taxing, depending on how much rest you give them, and how much time you have. But I like to give ample rest, depending on the difficulty of the task. If it's super easy, if it's just like 90 degrees go, super easy. But like say we're doing that jogging one I spoke before, or we're adding in like pogos, or we're adding in like exchanges through here. So I'm moving this way, exchange, and then go. Like you've got to kind of coordinate the legs, coordinate the feet, and move quickly. And again, that's just going to put a lot of load on one side, or in places that may not experience a whole heap. So I like to have a little bit of fun with the variability of my acceleration drills. But it happens so often in a game acceleration. So whether it's a tackle bus, or a pass, or a quick play, or whatever happens, like if you accelerate poorly, you cannot be an option in terms of receiving a pass. And this is just footies. So apologies for that. Or whatever happens, line break, intercept, whatever. Need to be able to react, need to be able to accelerate. Even going into contact is super important. And again, you might catch a ball here or wherever, and you need to be able to organize yourself and hit the line with pace. So acceleration, super important, as well as top speed. But in terms of at the beginning of pre-season, acceleration, trickled in with top speed, and just so acceleration is becomes so easy. Like it's not barely even a stimulus anymore, but in terms of the stress it's putting on the body is much lower than it would be if we didn't do it so often. So hopefully, I think I explained that a little bit better than I did my last topic. But yeah, big fan of acceleration in that department. But if you're an athlete or you play sport or whatever, and you're not sprinting or running, you're doing yourself a little bit of a disservice. And it's not from a performance point of view always. It's from a load management point of view, or like not necessarily management, but like a loading or a strength point of view. Like your ankles, or your joints, your tendons, etc., need to be able to expose to that load and expose to that kind of stimulus. Next, we've got a bit about what I spoke about, this kind of continuum. And this continuum, I guess, performance continuum or athletic continuum will be, first we do the movement, then we implement strength, and then we implement speed. So let's say I want to improve my vertical jump, but say like the hips are tight. I'm not gonna do, or like you can't access positions. There's no point adding speed, adding movement to, no point adding speed or adding strength if we cannot access a full range of motion required that we want. And I'm not talking absolutely like arse to grass, full deep squat before we add strength and speed, but being able to make sure hips can lengthen properly, there's enough rotation at the hips, or the spine can flex, or shoulders can move, and all that kind of stuff. If we don't have the ability to access those positions, then it kind of makes the other stuff into the strength and the speed a little bit redundant. So once we've implemented, so say we want to increase our vertical jump. The movement would be like, we'll start looking at hips, we'll start looking at spines, we'll start looking at, can we actually move and get into this position? Because if you're a basketballer and want to improve your vertical jump, you need to be able to, there needs to be enough movement variability in the body to leap and get up there. So what you might do is, mobility work and all that kind of stuff, and looking at strength and length, all that kind of stuff before you start going high loads. So strength can look like 1,000 different things, but in regards to this topic, there goes my light, but that's okay. In regards to strength for this topic, it's just high loads. So higher loads, so I'd be looking at something like a trap bar deadlift. For that kind of position, I'd be looking at squats, I'd be looking at a lot of single leg work, etc., etc. And once we have the mobility, it'll unlock ability. And then once we've kind of done that, then we can add speed. So being able to, and when I say speed, it's the reason we do speed as well. One, obviously for a speed effect and get quicker. You don't get quick by not training quick. But also, if you can do something at speed, generally you've got some coordination in there. And I would never put someone, if people don't have the mobility, and didn't have the mobility, I wouldn't add speed, because they probably wouldn't have the coordination. They don't have the access to their body to jump just yet. But once everything's hunky-dory, then I'd be adding speed on top of that. Yeah, and following that kind of, process. But other than that, that's all I have for you. That was a belter. That was 25 minutes and a half. So I think I was rambling on in this one. So apologies. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much. Yeah, crazy. If you've made it this far, this is almost 26 minutes of me just rambling on. So you might have just hit 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds forward. But if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. But yeah, that's all I got for you. All right, number 5, done. Our mail.